He's the man, he's the myth, he's the legend, he's the scientist with all the answers and all the questions. It's time for another episode of Alex's Science Corner.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. No, please, thank you. Oh, no, thank you.
And he really means no. Alex, what's going on in the wide world of science, my friend?
All right. First story is about stick insects. And researchers in Japan and the United States have found that stick insects,
What kind of insects? I'm sorry.
Stick insects.
Stick.
They're the insects that look like sticks.
Okay.
Okay. So one of the things that researchers have found is that one way they can get their eggs spread is by, if they are eaten by birds, the eggs will survive, or a portion of the eggs will survive the bird's digestive tract. And so when the bird flies around, the eggs can be spread farther than what the mama stick insect could spread them. Now, of course, there's some of the eggs are not going to survive the digestive tract, but the eggs, they do have a protective coating on them that will have them survive. So even if a stick insect is eaten, its eggs could still survive the journey through the stomach.
Oh, yuck.
Yeah. So mommy passed away feeding a bird, but babies are still going to. That's going to be some work for a insect psychologist to work on right there. Yeah, my mommy was eaten. Is that why you're such a problem child? Next story is about Pluto, or the next two stories are about Pluto. First part of the story is that, or the first story is that astronomers are suspecting that Pluto may have been formed from about 1 billion comets. And the inner planets like Earth, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, we form from the disk of dust and gases that the sun formed from. The outer Kuiper belt and the Oort cloud, where the comets formed a little bit differently. Still kind of the same material, but formed a little bit differently. And there's a strong suspicion now that Pluto might have formed from that material. Years ago, it was thought that Pluto might have been formed around Uranus, and that something had knocked it out of orbit. But the astronomers think that is not the case, because even though it's in a weird orbit, it is not weird enough that it looks like it came, even if it was whacked really hard, it did not come from Uranus's orbit. So it formed outside, it formed separately from the planets that are in the inner solar system. So then the next question is how did it form? Did it form from material that formed the rest of the planets, or did it form separately? And I've got both of you are completely lost right now. Because
I'm just fixated.
Brian's
I'm just fixated on your pronunciation of Uranus.
I'm saying Uranus. I'm not going to go with the.
Go ahead.
You've heard the Futurama joke. I'm not. Okay, I won't do the Futurama.
Go ahead.
Fine.
No, go ahead.
Just keep up with your story.
Would you like me to continue saying Uranus instead?
Do whatever you want.
But
All right, fine. Nobody cares about that.
Yes, we care, Bobby. We care. We're caring. Look at us.
We are. Yes,
look at it. Look at our eyes. We're looking at you in a very caring way.
Yeah, that and the caffeine is helping.
Well, we also both don't feel well. So.
Yes, please.
All right, so second story then. We'll just change the subject a little bit. They have found that there are sand dunes on Pluto, that there is enough atmosphere on Pluto to form sand dunes. Now, the dunes of sand, it's not actually sand. It's methane. Now, here on Earth, it's warm enough, methane is going to be a gas. But on Pluto, it's cold enough that methane solidifies and becomes an ice. And the grains of methane are small enough, light enough, and there is enough atmosphere on Pluto to form dunes of methane dunes.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool they could figure that out, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did they figure that out?
Well, there's the instruments that passed over when we had the satellite that passed a few years over Pluto. They were taking a lot of pictures, and so the pictures they're able to figure out. They were seeing the sand dunes in the pictures.
Did they have any sensors too that were
Well, that's part
going
of
through
the
the
other.
atmosphere?
Right. Well, I mean, that's where they've also discovered that Pluto does have an atmosphere. And trying to remember the name of the planet or the probe that was going over there. Of course, I forgot it. But there's the probe that they sent over a few years ago. Unfortunately, it could not orbit Pluto because to get it there within a lifespan, they had to have it fly past it so it could go fast enough to reach Pluto, but it was never going to go orbit Pluto. So as it flew by Pluto, it took as many measurements and pictures as it could before it flew away. It took a few months for it to send all the pictures that it took back to Earth.
Do they know where it is now?
Yeah, it's heading for another object in the Kuiper Belt.
Okay.
What they're hoping for is that they might be able to have it spot something else, so that it's headed for another object in the Kuiper Belt. Hopefully, it'll have enough power and be able to take more readings of that other Kuiper Belt object.
And it's a specific object that they're looking to, or is
Yeah,
it?
what it is as it was approaching Pluto, the astronomers who control the spacecraft, they were looking for an object that they could redirect the satellite to after it passed by Pluto.
Got it.
They found something, they redirected it. There's not a lot of options. It can only go a little bit off of its course to go to this other object, and they did find something.
Good. Okay.
Right?
And that's all the science that we have?
Yeah. Did
Okay.
you?
No,
stop?
that's... I'm just thinking science. All right, if you want to call Alex about these stories or anything else science-related, feel free to call him right now at 203
837
99.
24.